Support AMTV at the AMTV store. That's store.amtvmedia.com. Click the link below right now. Check out all of our ProPure water filtration systems. Get the new ProPure water filter pitcher. Check out the ProPure Nomad water filtration system for your entire family or office. Clean, crisp, filtrated water. Check it out right now at the store.amtvmedia.com. That's the AMTV store. Click the link below right now. Hey everybody, I'm Christopher Green. You're tuning into AMTV Alternative Media Television. It is Thursday, July 16, 2015. You know, I don't agree with the federal government on a lot of things. In fact, I believe in limited government, small federal government. Give the states more rights and, quite frankly, just stay out of my business. But there is one thing I agree with the president on, our officials, our bought and paid for politicians on Capitol Hill, and that is we need to fight terrorism. And the greatest terrorist, the greatest threat to the United States and the great people that make up this wonderful and amazing land is the Federal Reserve System. People like Janet Yellen that again represents the tentacles of the banksters that represent the Federal Reserve and set interest rate policy. For example, interest rates have not been hiked, I believe, since 2006. They have been on the steady decline, and then they've just been staying at zero since 2008, post the fallout of the 2008 and 2009 financial crash that resulted in multi-trillion-dollar bailouts paid by you and me. Rates have not risen since 2006. We've had several Federal Reserve chairmen and chairwomen at the post. People like Alan Greenspan that cut interest rates, created the largest bubble we'd ever seen in history, where real estate prices and the stock market skyrocketed before an inevitable collapse. And we had Ben Bernanke perpetuate the same scam, and now we have Janet Yellen perpetuating the same scam. I always find it kind of funny too. They always pick the same individual. They got to look a certain way. It's almost like they just give them makeup, give them a little gray hair, cut it all formally and conservatively, so Janet Yellen looks the part of that annoying to handle interest rates on a regular basis. It's almost like it's an act, and isn't that the truth? It is, because it is an act. Again, people like Janet Yellen just representing the tentacles that make up Wall Street, just like our politicians and the President of the United States represent the tentacles that make up large, gigantic corporations that really own the United States of America, just like the banks own the United States of America. So I agree with the federal government, and I agree with Obama that we need to fight terrorism, but we need to fight terrorism at the root of the problem. We need to fight the Federal Reserve System, a criminal private institution that, again, determines interest rates, sets policy really essentially for the entire world. I mean, this has trickled over to the ECB. This has trickled over into the Eurozone with their rate cutting. This trickles over into China with their rate cutting and easy policy. This trickles all over the entire globe. I mean, we have a private institution really dictating the livelihoods and the well-beings of populations around the world. This affects things like commodity prices, for example, food prices. We saw food prices skyrocket in recent years around the 2008-2009 financial crash, all because interest rates are being held at zero. It affects retirees. Many of you tuning in, baby boomers, that can't buy a bond or a U.S. Treasury bond, say 30 years, and get any kind of return on your investment because interest rates are at zero. In fact, there was a senator today that came out on CNBC and said that maybe we should allow Congress to set interest rates because it's obvious the Federal Reserve isn't going to raise them. And even if they do raise them, it's only going to be raised 25, 50 bips, which is essentially not raising interest rates. You're still keeping them essentially at zero. We have real negative interest rates in our economy today. So we have this terrorism being implemented on behalf of the American people and the great people of the world, courtesy of the criminal Federal Reserve, with really no intention ever to normalize policy and interest rates. In fact, Ben Bernanke, behind closed doors, made the statement that there will never be a period of time in his lifetime where they will normalize interest rates, set a normal tone for the economic environment. Because the whole system is bankrupt, of course. The whole system is defunct. Just like this bailout in Greece, which resulted in riots. Reported on this yesterday on the heels of the video that we put out, Molotov cocktails. See how it's going over very well, that third tertiary bailout in Greece only kicks the can down the road. Just like Mohamed Al-Arian, formerly co-CIO of PIMCO and now a representative of Allianz Investment, a German-based company, says it's only a matter of time. I argue it will be less than 3 years before there is another severe situation in Greece to be dealt with. And again, no different here in the United States of America. You see, we have a structural problem at the heart of our financial system, at the heart of our political system, not just here in the United States, but globally. And it all ends in collapse. It ends in total destruction. You see, the greatest threat to our well-being, our liberty, our freedom, our long-term sustainability as a nation, as a freedom-loving country, and this goes for all people around the world in their respective countries, is the Federal Reserve System, are these central banks that act independently, privately, on their own behalf. Again, we don't elect any of these individuals. I didn't elect Janet Yellen. You didn't elect Ben Bernanke. Nobody's elected people like Alan Greenspan. These people are appointed by a private bank that makes up the Federal Reserve. Again, that is dictating interest rates, that has far more power, arguably, than the President of the United States. So why they sell us on fear of terrorism, of the new Durka boogeyman, the new Al-Qaeda, or the new Osama bin Laden, or the new ISIS they're creating out of some Hollywood studio, the real focus should be on the real terrorist organization, the real terrorists, those sitting at the Federal Reserve and at the Federal Reserve System itself specifically. We've had numerous politicians talk about this, Ron Paul notably, Rand Paul notably, calling for an audit. I would call that we need to break up the entire institution itself. But it always goes under the radar until there's some kind of incitement. There's some kind of catalyst. There's Molotov cocktails being thrown in Greece. You see, Greece, folks, is a coup. They just didn't use tanks. It's an economic act of war. You see, Germany, the Troika, the ECB, now own, the IMF now owns Greece through privatization of their assets. About $50 billion worth of airports, infrastructure, airplanes, last remnants of the banks. It's a military takeover. I mean, didn't Hitler do the same thing? Didn't it help propel and cause the outbreak of World War II? You know, we always get that fear, paranoia, propaganda, demonization of these historical figures, but isn't the Troika and the ECB doing the same thing to Greece right now? As far as I know, they're not even writing down the debt. That's how crazy town it actually is. I mean, again, this is just math. You can look at the best case scenarios. Even if Greece is put back on a path to sustainable growth, they'll still be broke in the next 10, 20, 50 years. They'll still be bankrupt. Again, this latest $86 billion short-term bridge loan financing only lasts 3 years. 3 years or less. That's why the whole thing leads to an outbreak of war, because that inevitably will be the reset button. That will be the excuse. They'll argue that you and your family and your children need to fight on the front lines to protect the bankers. Yeah, the integrity of the Federal Reserve. You know, I heard last night that the elder Bush, unfortunately, I believe, had fallen. He broken a bone in his neck. You know, kind of maybe a metaphor for the United States, having a broken bone in its neck. Very unfortunate situation for us to be in. And as we are continued to be fear-mongered, these threats of terrorism all over the world, again, the real terrorist threat is sitting right here at home, right in front of us, in the name of the Federal Reserve, the Federal Reserve System, a private institution and a private bank with appointees as our representatives, people like Janet Yellen. While Obama negotiates new nuke deals with our new American ally, Iran, in fact, I heard one of the conditions that Iran had on the table for this deal to get done is that we're now going to be changing, this is something Obama will be proposing, changing the United States of America to the United States of Iran. I'm surprised that's not the case. See how they demonize a country for years, over a decade? You know, the same country that calls us the great Satan, now they're our friends. Now it's the United States of Iran here in the United States of America. This is a hallmark of Obama legislation, his presidency. The hallmark of Obama's presidency is transgenderism and cutting a deal with Iran. Yeah, that's his hallmark to his presidency. Saw Bruce Jenner won his award at the ESPYs last night. I guess he broke in tears. I don't watch any of it. I could really care less. But that's the America. That's the hallmark of this Obama land. That's the hallmark of this hope and change. Cut your dick off society, negotiate with our once supposedly propagandized great enemy that still to this day calls us the great Satan and is still holding captive American POWs and American citizens, a world where they constantly pitch us on the idea of terrorism, even though allegedly Osama bin Laden is dead, but now we got a new boogeyman in the creation of ISIS being produced out of some Hollywood studio somewhere, when again, the real focus should be right here at home, right at the Federal Reserve. The great Satan, the private institution that dictates and sets monetary and fiscal policy that's supposed to employ full employment and monitor long-term interest rates and balance out that yield curve. Doing none of that at all, only helping to create gigantic bubbles so that it results in very strategic, isn't this interesting, military, preemptive economic, but soon to be military coups, like what we're seeing in Greece, the taking over of nations through debt, through bondage, through slavery, through institutions like the IMF and the World Bank. You keep everybody in chains, not just the people, but these countries in bondage through debt. In debt we trust, America. I'm Christopher Green. Get this video out everywhere, make it viral, hard hitting it in your face, and click the link below to support our sponsor.